This is part 3 of a letter from the Chancellor's office, which is based on a state Attorney General investigation that was conducted on CUSB. And we were just talking about the remedies and the fact that when I was finally readmitted, they admitted me to the wrong classes. So I actually, because of that, they would not accept the classes that I wanted. They didn't have any academic counselors. I was stuck with the VP of Finance who wasn't. So they gave me the wrong classes, and I ended up getting 2 Fs. And so I now have a 3.78 with 2 Fs, and they're not readmitting me, and they're not letting me drop the Fs. So you can see that nothing's really stopped. They're saying they're going to reimburse me for unreimbursed tuition. I have no record that they've done that. There's several problems when you look at the financial situation here, because this whole program was based on just profiteering from both American students on federal financial student aid and the Koreans who were cash paying customers are more than happy to walk away with this document that they had. So they're claiming under C that they're going to reimburse. Well, there's no record that they've done that, either in August when they should have reimbursed that entire period of classes, those 2 classes in August, which I would have been finished at that point. At that point, I was done with the classes. This is how close I got. Of course, the degree is completely fake. There's no doubt about it that there would be a lot of Koreans with this master's that you wouldn't even be able to have a conversation with, certainly not an academic one, about teaching. So they're claiming they're under D that they're not going to charge me with tuition and fees. Again, I have no record of what they've done because these are just words on a completely fraudulent, the whole thing was a fraud. And the notice of findings will go to Morales, and of course he is going to be the guy that's going to hold, Dr. Brian Haynes accountable, and that's not going to happen. Of course, Haynes was merely acting in the manner that Morales wanted him to. So this is just ridiculous. I mean, typically in a lot of jobs, state jobs, private jobs, this is grounds for termination. I mean, there's just no question about it. You wouldn't retain this employee. Yet, unbelievably, University of California, Riverside wants this guy. This guy's amazing, Brian Haynes is going to save the day. So the Chancellor's office, as I mentioned, they started off extremely professional, very nice, and then they turned into another monster. And so what happens with this clown, Mark Crace, is I'm going into the appeal. And I submit the appeal 3 days before. It was 3 days before the deadline. Crace never confirms this. I send him an email asking to confirm it. He ignores it, and then later, Linda Hansen surfaces to tell me, oh, so nicely and formally, that I in fact didn't file an appeal. I mean, the problem was this investigation was so corrupted that they couldn't afford an appeal. So just out the gate, they're misrepresenting the truth. So, I mean, I filed an appeal, but you can imagine. I mean, you think they're really going to expose the fraud for what it is? So, anyhow, we shall see. I'm asking the university to issue the degree immediately. I mean, it's complete fraud, but you got to have these things. To get a decent job, you have to have a master's in this profession. And they've interfered with that for over 3 years. I've lost a lot of income because of this. So I've asked them to issue the goddamn thing. I mean, they've already given it to Koreans, like countless Koreans, that are completely unqualified. Pay off the $50,000 plus debt that I have, because there's no doubt the receipt of federal financial aid was that I was defrauded myself. I had no way of knowing that I was entering into a program that was a diploma mill. There's no way I could have known that. It wasn't until a year into it, in about November 2014, is when we're all getting together, all the American teachers are getting together, and we're like, OMG. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, as I've said, the Koreans aren't showing up to classes and not submitting their paperwork. And what we find out later, and they actually admitted to not taking the IELTS. Like, they actually stated they took this, tell me more, this non-accredited in-home assessment to be admitted into a state university in California. It just doesn't happen. I mean, you've got to have the IELTS. That's the industry standard. So that was never mentioned. They're not going to talk about that. They're not going to talk about the backdoor admissions. They refused to reveal the IELTS scores, even in a blind example where they would have the scores but not the person's name, so we could see what level they were scoring on. They're going to need at least a 7 on the IELTS to get in, and there's no way that they would have scored a 7. That's a fairly rigid test, and they knew that, so they avoided that. So the problem is that there's just so many layers here that Haynes has been involved in, and Milton Clark and Thomas Morales. I mean, it's just Thomas Morales, the immoral one, of course. It's just ridiculous. So, give me my degree, fix my transcripts, refund me the money, and then you're going to have to pay me some damages for lost wages over the last 3 years because it has significantly handicapped my ability to get a decent job. And they know that this is part of the retaliation, is to make sure that I never come back. This is why they gave me the wrong classes. They gave me to the VP of Finance to manage my enrollment after this nasty suspension. So, and also we're going to be in contact with the University of California at Riverside. We're very concerned that Dr. Haynes is going to be there. It just doesn't make any sense, and he needs to go his merry way. We need to retire the brother, as Milton Clark did.